In the bustling streets of Chicago, where tall skyscrapers meet simmering tensions, Ava, a determined Asian American woman, seeks to launch her future with a coveted marketing internship. Yet on the very morning of her life-changing interview, she encounters a chilling episode of racial harassment that shakes her confidence to the core. Taunted and belittled by strangers solely because of her heritage, Ava finds herself torn between fighting back or succumbing to the fear and self-doubt that threaten to derail her dreams. Despite her resilience, the clock is ticking, and the weight of discrimination stands in stark contrast to her ambitions. Little does she know that a fateful meeting on the sidewalk will unleash a chain of events exposing the raw pain of prejudice and the unexpected power of human kindness. Will Ava overcome these challenges, or will the injustice she faces define her path? Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. In the bustling heart of Chicago, Ava, a determined Asian American marketing hopeful, woke before dawn, anxious yet resolute about her upcoming internship interview. Having faced microaggressions and subtle prejudices all her life, she refused to let fear overshadow her ambitions. However, on this crisp morning, reality struck harder than she ever expected. As she hurried down the street, a group of strangers hurled vicious insults at her, ridiculing her accent and questioning her right to pursue a coveted position. Their taunts stung, rekindling memories of past humiliations and stirring a wave of insecurity she had long battled to suppress. Despite her trembling hands and racing heartbeat, Ava pressed on, determined not to let hatred define her future. She sprinted toward the office building, driven by unshakable hope and unwavering optimism. Yet fate intervened. She stumbled upon an older man, Mr. Thompson, sprawled on the sidewalk after tripping over his heavy suitcase. Torn between her urgent timetable and her instinct to help, she chose kindness. His gratitude was immediate, and in the midst of thanking her, he noticed her shaken demeanor. Concerned, he inquired about her situation, and she reluctantly confessed the assault she had just endured. She felt emboldened. Impressed by her resilience and empathy, Mr. Thompson asked if she needed any assistance. Unbeknownst to Ava, this man was the CEO of a highly regarded marketing firm, visiting the city for a pivotal meeting. By the time she finally reached the interview venue, however, she discovered it had ended early. The biting disappointment, compounded by the ugly scene she had just experienced, threatened to extinguish the hope she had fostered for months. A sudden message from Mr. Thompson brightened her phone screen. He invited her to join him for coffee, wanting to ensure she was safe and to hear more about her aspirations. Though hesitant, Ava sensed in him an ally who saw beyond her ethnicity, someone truly interested in her potential. Over steaming mugs, they spoke about her experiences facing xenophobia, her determination to excel in marketing, and the injustice that continued to plague many communities of color. Moved by her story, Mr. Thompson offered a lifeline, a chance to present her ideas to his team and possibly secure an internship at his company. In the days that followed, Ava poured her heart into developing a campaign concept. Drawing from her encounters with racism, she shaped an inclusive marketing vision that resonated with younger audiences seeking meaningful representation. When she returned to present her proposal, she noticed encouraging smiles rather than dismissive glances. Mr. Thompson recognized her creativity and perseverance. Offering her a formal internship, he assured her that her unique voice deserved to be heard, regardless of the prejudice she faced outside. Thus, what began as a harrowing episode of bigotry became the catalyst for Ava's journey toward professional success and personal growth. In a single week, she learned that true opportunity arises where prejudice and compassion collide, and that one act of kindness can pave the way for remarkable change. In the weeks following her acceptance as an intern, Ava stepped into Mr. Thompson's office with cautious optimism, determined to make the most of every opportunity. She found herself surrounded by ambitious colleagues, most of whom greeted her warmly enough. Yet beneath the surface of friendly nods, she sensed a few uncomfortable glances. Some co-workers doubted her abilities, attributing her creativity to exotic thinking rather than genuine skill. Ava recalled the strangers who had belittled her on the street, a harsh reminder that prejudice lingered everywhere, even within the sleek walls of a corporate environment. Determined to focus on her responsibilities, Ava threw herself into the marketing campaign she had been recruited to support. Her duties involved studying demographic data, developing inclusive messaging, and collaborating with the design team to produce content that resonated with a diverse audience. Despite occasional microaggressions, such as jokes about her accent or backhanded compliments regarding her surprising proficiency in English, she persevered. Mr. Thompson's unwavering support bolstered her confidence, and she endeavored to let her work speak louder than any narrow-minded remarks. One afternoon, as a critical client meeting approached, tensions rose. Some team members worried that Ava's forward-thinking approach might alienate a traditional client base. They questioned her judgment, implying she would be too culturally biased to connect with mainstream American consumers. Stung but undeterred, Ava reminded herself of her purpose, to help shape campaigns that spoke to a broader audience and challenged antiquated norms. She refined her proposals meticulously, merging data-driven insights with a heartfelt conviction that inclusivity benefited everyone. During the meeting, Ava stood at the head of the conference table, anxiety swirling in her stomach, but determination burning in her eyes. She presented graphs and testimonials from consumers who often felt excluded by one-dimensional marketing campaigns. While a few skeptical gazes flickered across the room, Mr. Thompson's confident nod encouraged her to press on. Gradually, curiosity replaced doubt, and her colleagues leaned in to hear more. By the time Ava finished, even the most resistant team members acknowledged the potential of her inclusive approach. Outside the conference room, however, rumblings persisted. Two of her co-workers openly questioned whether her strategies were truly universal or if they simply pandered to minority groups. Their dismissal underlined that the road to acceptance was far from smooth. Still, Ava refused to shrink. She confided in Mr. Thompson, who assured her that change was often met with resistance. Driven by a deep belief in fairness, Ava continued to push for campaigns that bridged cultural gaps rather than ignored them. As the campaign took shape, the positive reactions from test groups validated her vision. Mr. Thompson proudly credited Ava during team presentations, ensuring her voice was heard. Though some lingering biases persisted, she could feel the needle beginning to move. The triumphs were not solely hers, they belonged to countless individuals who craved representation in everyday media. Ava's internship had become more than a career launch, it was her stand against racism, showing that courage, empathy, and integrity could dismantle prejudice one strategy at a time. As the weeks rolled on, Ava found herself more deeply entrenched in the company's daily operations. Though still an intern, her inclusive campaign concepts had begun to turn heads, drawing praise from forward-thinking colleagues. Bolstered by these small victories, she took on extra tasks wherever possible, proofreading marketing copy, scheduling focus groups, and even stepping in to help finalize design layouts. All the while, she remained mindful of the undercurrent of racial bias that still simmered within certain corners of the office. A few co-workers made thinly veiled comments whenever she proposed a fresh idea, reminding her that the fight against prejudice was far from over. Her biggest test arrived when Mr. Thompson asked her to join a crucial strategy session with an influential prospective client. This new partner, a large tech conglomerate, was known for its global reach yet had come under fire for a lack of diversity in its own branding. If secured, the project could elevate the firm's reputation immensely, and Ava saw an opportunity to challenge outdated norms on a massive scale. Before the meeting, she prepared meticulously, compiling research that underscored how genuine representation could boost brand loyalty across different ethnic and cultural communities. Some on the team scoffed, dismissing her approach as too niche, but she pressed on, determined to show the value of inclusive storytelling. In the conference room, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Ava sat beside Mr. Thompson, her hands clasped beneath the table in an effort to steady her nerves. The lead representative from the tech conglomerate eyed the presentation materials skeptically. He questioned whether an international focus might diminish their core American audience. Sensing the tension, Ava calmly explained how a broader perspective could help them connect with today's diverse consumer market, one increasingly aware of social justice issues, from racism to equity and inclusion. She cited case studies and brand successes that hinged on speaking authentically to underrepresented communities. Despite the representative's guarded posture, Mr. Thompson chimed in, endorsing Ava's points and highlighting the firm's recent positive feedback from younger demographics. During a brief recess, one of Ava's more traditionalist co-workers approached her, eyebrows raised. "Don't you think you're pushing this too hard?" he asked, his tone walking a tightrope between curiosity and condescension. Ava forced a measured smile. "It's only too hard if we ignore what consumers want," she replied. Though the remark stung, she refused to let it derail her. Instead, she refocused on the final stretch of the pitch. When the session resumed, Ava outlined a social media campaign that featured voices from different ethnicities and backgrounds discussing real-life challenges and aspirations. Her storytelling angle emphasized unity across cultures without erasing individual identities. The shift in the client's demeanor was subtle but noticeable. He leaned forward, genuinely engaged for the first time that day. By the time Ava finished, a thoughtful silence enveloped the room. Then the representative nodded slowly, acknowledging the need to evolve and capture the loyalty of an increasingly diverse audience. Later, as the team debriefed, Mr. Thompson pulled Ava aside. His praise was direct and heartfelt. She had given the client reason to trust in a more inclusive path. Still, she knew her work wasn't finished. Beyond landing the deal, Ava was forging a trail for others who had wrestled with prejudice in corporate America. Each idea she pitched, each meeting she led, became a statement of defiance against racial discrimination, a promise that she would continue pushing boundaries until inclusivity felt less like a risk and more like a necessary standard for success. In the days following her successful pitch to the tech conglomerate, Ava found herself juggling newfound responsibilities and a lingering undercurrent of skepticism from certain colleagues. Rumors circulated that the firm's leadership team was considering her campaign as the blueprint for a broader rebranding effort, an honor few interns could hope to attain. Yet, while some co-workers congratulated her with genuine enthusiasm, others openly questioned whether she deserved such recognition. Whispers flitted through hallway conversations, hinting that Ava had gained this platform solely because the company wanted to check a diversity box, rather than acknowledge her actual skill. Undeterred by the side talk, Ava channeled every ounce of determination into refining the campaign. Working late nights and early mornings became her routine. She analyzed consumer data, pored over social media trends, and scheduled video calls with international focus groups, determined to make the final product not only inclusive but genuinely resonant. Mr. Thompson, ever supportive, offered guidance on presenting her progress to the executive board. Even so, Ava could sense the friction building among peers who felt overshadowed by her rapid ascent. That tension reached a boiling point during a project review session. As Ava showcased mock-ups highlighting diverse faces and voices, one coworker, Brian, rolled his eyes and audibly scoffed. When pressed for feedback, he muttered that such over-the-top political correctness would alienate more customers than it would attract. Ava's hands trembled with indignation, recalling every hateful remark she had endured since childhood. Summoning composure, she calmly explained that data reflected a significant demographic shift, one that demanded advertisements speak to people of all backgrounds. While Mr. Thompson and a handful of others nodded in agreement, the uneasy silence in the room spoke volumes. Rather than concede, Brian doubled down. He accused Ava of pushing an agenda that had little to do with real business outcomes. Only the firm stance of Mr. Thompson finally ended the standoff. Outside that meeting, the strain of constant prejudice weighed heavily on Ava. She confided in a close friend from her old neighborhood, someone who understood her battles with discrimination. Their conversation reminded her why she had embarked on this journey in the first place, to champion representation for people like herself who rarely saw their own stories reflected in mainstream media. This personal mission fueled her passion, turning frustration into unwavering resolve. As the rebranding proposal neared completion, Ava organized a series of workshops within the company to educate coworkers about the importance of inclusive marketing. She invited industry experts and social justice advocates to discuss real-world examples of campaigns that had successfully bridged racial and cultural divides. Though some attendees appeared skeptical at first, the stories of growth and brand loyalty began to break down barriers. Slowly but surely, the seeds of understanding took root. By the time the executive board convened to approve the final campaign strategy, Ava's vision was undeniably at its core. Despite the naysayers, the data told a compelling story. Audiences were tired of outdated, exclusionary messaging. With Mr. Thompson's unwavering endorsement, the board unanimously voted to move forward. Yet Ava knew that, in many ways, her battle had just begun. Having glimpsed the stark contrasts between open-minded collaboration and entrenched prejudice, she resolved to continue fighting for a world in which every voice could be heard, both in marketing and beyond. Following the executive board's unanimous approval, Ava found herself thrust into a whirlwind of preparations for the official launch of the newly approved campaign. The office crackled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Colleagues hurried past one another, armed with mock-ups, video scripts, and scheduling spreadsheets. In the midst of this commotion, Ava stood firm, determined to ensure that the inclusive essence of her vision remained intact. She knew that unveiling such a campaign would draw attention not just to the firm's rebranding, but also to the issues of racism and prejudice she had battled since her first day. Mr. Thompson assigned her to lead a cross-departmental meeting, where creative, data, and production teams would finalize launch details. Though still technically an intern, Ava embraced the responsibility, determined to show the entire company that she was more than a symbolic face of diversity. Before the meeting started, she noticed Brian sitting at the corner of the room, arms folded, his expression a mix of defiance and wariness. His presence was a constant reminder of the many who doubted the necessity of challenging the status quo. Nonetheless, Ava remained cordial, greeting him with a polite nod before diving into her presentation. As the teams pieced together last-minute adjustments, comments about the campaign's edgy approach surfaced. While many praised the bold use of authentic stories from people of color, others worried about alienating a conservative segment of their audience. Ava maintained that authenticity would resonate with a broader consumer base than the firm had ever reached before. Citing compelling statistics and heartfelt testimonials, she insisted the time had come to address racial bias head-on. Even some skeptics, including a senior director known for preferring traditional, safe marketing tactics, admitted the data pointed to a society that was ready for more inclusive advertising. Gradually, the conversation shifted from caution to cautious optimism. On the night of the launch, the firm hosted an unveiling event in a renovated loft space downtown. Clients, media representatives, and influencers gathered under glittering chandeliers to preview the campaign's cornerstone video. Throughout the evening, Ava watched as attendees responded to candid interviews with individuals from diverse backgrounds, their voices highlighting shared aspirations and challenges. Whispers of admiration floated through the crowd, but she also caught pockets of whispered dissent. A few critics labeled the campaign too politically charged or unnecessary pandering. Those comments pricked at her insecurities, yet she refused to let them overshadow the strong sense of validation that pulsed through her veins. Later, a reporter approached her, requesting a brief interview about the campaign's inspiration. Ava spoke candidly about the racism she had faced, both inside and outside the workplace, and how it fueled her desire to create impactful marketing that championed authenticity. Mr. Thompson observed the exchange from across the room, beaming with pride. Although others might question the firm's direction, it was clear that Ava's message was hitting home for countless guests. As the event wound down, she found a quiet moment to reflect on how far she had come. The overt prejudice she encountered in Chicago's streets and the subtle barbs within the office walls had propelled her forward instead of holding her back. With every achievement, she broke down barriers, proving that true innovation often thrives where it confronts discomfort. Ava understood that the fight against racism was far from over, but her journey thus far testified that every step toward inclusion, and every story bravely told, had the power to reshape not only a brand, but an entire cultural narrative. In the months following the triumphant campaign launch, Ava's journey took on a new intensity as she stepped into a leadership role that few ever envisioned for an intern. The success of the inclusive marketing initiative had not only elevated the firm's profile but also sparked a nationwide conversation about representation in advertising. As media outlets praised the bold approach and industry analysts highlighted the campaign's impressive reach among diverse demographics, Ava found herself both celebrated and challenged. While many hailed her as a trailblazer in dismantling systemic biases, others, often steeped in traditional mindsets, continued to scrutinize her every move, questioning whether her success was a product of genuine merit or merely a strategic nod to diversity quotas. Amid the accolades, Ava encountered new forms of resistance. In executive meetings, subtle comments emerged from a few senior colleagues who implied that her innovative strategies were too risky for a market rooted in conventional norms. One such comment, delivered in a hushed tone during a board review, suggested that her unorthodox methods might alienate the firm's long-standing clients. The remark stung deeply, dredging up memories of the street insults and office microaggressions that had plagued her since day one. Yet, bolstered by the unwavering support of Mr. Thompson and the tangible success of her campaign, Ava chose to channel the criticism into fuel for her advocacy. Determined to break down the remaining barriers, Ava launched a series of internal seminars and mentorship programs within the company. She invited experts in diversity, equity, and inclusion to speak and shared her own experiences of overcoming racial prejudice in the corporate world. These workshops became a safe space for colleagues to voice their own struggles with bias and learn about the transformative power of inclusive practices. Her efforts sparked candid discussions that, while sometimes uncomfortable, gradually paved the way for a more empathetic and open-minded workplace culture. Outside the firm, Ava's reputation as a leader in inclusive marketing grew. Invitations to national conferences and panel discussions flowed in, providing her with platforms to share her story and advocate for systemic change in the advertising industry. At one such event, a distinguished panelist remarked that Ava's journey exemplified the long-overdue shift in corporate America, a move toward valuing diverse voices in decision-making processes. Her passionate presentations not only resonated with young professionals from underrepresented communities but also encouraged many established figures to re-examine their own biases. Yet, even as her professional life flourished, Ava remained acutely aware of the broader societal challenges. She continued to receive messages and emails from individuals who had experienced similar discrimination, seeking guidance and inspiration. These heartfelt communications reminded her that the fight against racism was an ongoing battle, both in the boardroom and on the streets. With every new challenge, she resolved to push harder, to use her platform to expose inequities, and to drive tangible change in an industry that had long been resistant to diversity. Through resilience, hard work, and an unwavering commitment to justice, Ava was transforming not just her career, but the very culture of the marketing world. Her story was a testament to the power of perseverance in the face of adversity, a bold declaration that true innovation thrives when we embrace our differences. And as she looked toward the future, Ava knew that every step forward was a victory against the enduring shadows of racial prejudice. In the wake of her growing influence and the sustained success of the inclusive campaign, Ava's journey reached a pivotal new chapter. With her innovative approach now woven into the fabric of the firm's identity, she was invited to serve on the company's Diversity and Inclusion Council. In this capacity, Ava worked tirelessly to ensure that voices from all backgrounds were not only heard but celebrated. The responsibility was immense, and with every meeting, she encountered both overt support and subtle resistance from longtime executives still clinging to outdated norms. One morning, as she reviewed proposals for a new community outreach program, a senior manager dismissed her ideas with a sneer, remarking that they were too radical for the company's conservative client base. The comment stung, reopening old wounds from years of discrimination. Yet, instead of retreating, Ava saw it as an opportunity to further educate her peers about the value of diversity in a globalized market. She organized a series of roundtable discussions, inviting both industry experts and employees to share their experiences with racial bias and its impact on creativity. These sessions quickly became a forum for candid conversation, gradually shifting the corporate culture toward greater empathy and understanding. At the same time, Ava's influence extended beyond the company walls. Recognized as a thought leader in inclusive marketing, she was invited to speak at national conferences and industry panels. At one event in New York, she recounted her personal journey, detailing the painful encounters with racism on Chicago streets and in boardrooms, and how those experiences fueled her commitment to change. Her words resonated deeply with a diverse audience, many of whom saw their own struggles reflected in her story. The media began to take notice, with several prominent publications featuring her as a symbol of progress in the fight against racial injustice. Despite the accolades, Ava remained acutely aware of the challenges that still lay ahead. She continued to receive messages from young professionals seeking guidance on navigating an industry riddled with prejudice. Determined to pay it forward, she launched a mentorship initiative aimed at empowering underrepresented talent in marketing. Through workshops, one-on-one sessions, and networking events, Ava nurtured a new generation of creative thinkers who were unafraid to challenge the status quo. While Ava celebrated these successes, the echoes of past discrimination served as a constant reminder that the battle against racism was far from over. Every step forward in her career was shadowed by the persistent reality of bias, both overt and insidious. Yet, rather than succumbing to despair, Ava's resolve only strengthened. With a blend of courage, compassion, and unyielding determination, she vowed to continue fighting for a world where every individual's unique voice could shine without fear or prejudice. In this new era, Ava's legacy was not just about a successful campaign or a groundbreaking internship, it was about igniting a movement. A movement that challenged outdated assumptions, dismantled barriers, and paved the way for a future defined by inclusion, equity, and mutual respect. Ava's journey reminds us that resilience and compassion can transform adversity into opportunity. Despite facing overt racism on the streets and subtle biases in the workplace, Ava remained steadfast in her pursuit of a dream. Her story teaches us that every act of kindness and every courageous stand against discrimination not only empowers us but also ignites change in our communities. Embracing our unique identities and speaking up against injustice is essential in a world that still struggles with prejudice. This narrative inspires us to view challenges as stepping stones toward personal growth and societal progress. I invite you to reflect on your own experiences and consider how you can be a force for positive change. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, as I genuinely value your thoughts and connection on this journey toward a more inclusive future. Together, we can build a world free from racial injustice.